Good morning, everybody out there in internet land. We are almost live. Some of you are seeing us live, but we are about to connect to Instagram too. So in one moment, the preview will show up over here. And then when the IG folks are able to be live with us, we will actually get into the meat of our topic. Here we go. We are now live on Instagram. So let me click that in. We'll just welcome everybody. Okay. I feel like I clicked go live, but maybe Instagram feed is frozen a little bit. Oh, there we go. It's on. Hello. Okay. We are officially live, everybody. So welcome to Hot Mess Life Coach Season 5, Episode 10. I am your host, Brian Hogan, both Hot Mess and a life coach. And I'm joined by my co-host, Morgan Barbrett. And today, we're going to continue our conversation about emotions, specifically tackling pride. Morning, Mo.
Good morning. I'm so excited to talk about pride because we get to touch on some ethical theories today, which is my favorite because I studied that in college.
Okay, right on. So I am experiencing a slight delay between you and me, so let you and me be mindful of how that goes. I don't know if you're experiencing it on your side, but I have. Okay, so I want to start with dictionary
just a little
definition.
bit. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, there it was. Okay. I want to start with the dictionary definition of pride. And there are two, and one of them is a sense of one's own proper dignity.
I can't hear you at all.
No. Okay. I'm going to switch microphones if I can. Oh, Morgan, I'm trying to figure out my sound. Do you want to talk a little bit about pride?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. But before we hop down here, Brian was saying that he hopes his computer lasts for like another couple months. I don't know if it's going to do that for him or not. So let's talk about pride while Ryan's figuring out his microphone. So pride, we're kind of debating between whether it's like more of a emotion or like a state that creates emotions. But the main thing that we wanted to talk about is like pride can be both a positive and a negative thing depending on how it shows up. So if you have like just enough pride, it can help like bolster your self-esteem. It can create motivation, and we'll talk about how it can do that. But if it's, if you have too much of it, then that can appear as arrogance, or it can appear as having like a big ego, an inflated sense of superiority, which can damage your relationships. Or a phrase that sometimes you hear associated with pride is, like the pride before the fall. Like if you have too much pride, then you might overestimate your abilities and then face consequences for that later. But Brian, are you with us? We're working on it. Sort of. We're working on it. Okay.
The page so, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you?
This is fun. I can.
Amazing. Well, if we had any pride building up about our live stream at all, this particular day with these technical glitches is going to bring us right down to earth. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. We can't can't have too much pride about how well this is going. Yep, that's fine. Oh man.
It really says page unresponsive. Do you want to quit? And if quit, I think it did you too. So I'm just like, maybe. But at least you can hear me. So I can chime in here and there, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you. Well, I can't wait to watch this back and be like, oh, like, how did this actually look to somebody who's watching it? But let me just talk about Aristotle and Nicomachean ethics for a moment. So when I was in college, I was studying ethics. I studied ethical theories. I have like a minor in ethics and values, like personal values. Um, and my all-time favorite, it was the first ethical theory that I ever learned, but it was my favorite throughout like the rest of my degree, was Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. And essentially, if you were to boil down many pages of his explanation, what it comes down to is to be virtuous, or to have a virtue, meaning having a really positive trait or characteristic about yourself. That trait, it has to exist in neither excess nor deficiency. So what that means is, if you have too much of something, then it becomes a bad thing. And if you have too little of something, then it also becomes a bad thing. So being a moral person has to do with trying to bring those traits into equilibrium. So like, if for, and I'll talk about pride again, but for example, the one that I remember the most from reading it like 8 years ago is, if you have too much bravery, then you can become like rash and like make decisions that create too much risk in your life. And if you don't have enough bravery, then you won't take enough risk in your life, or you may prevent yourself from having positive experiences because you are so afraid that you don't engage with your life. But if you have the perfect amount of bravery, then you have courage, which helps you do things. It helps you try new things and be able to grow and engage with your life without creating so much risk that it potentially, you know, hurts you in a substantially consequential way. So let's take this to pride. Um, if you have too much pride, then you have a big ego and you have arrogance. If you don't have enough pride, then you probably have low self-esteem and low motivation. But if you can get enough pride, if you can have an amount of pride that is balanced in your life, then the result is that you feel not only motivated because you can feel proud of your accomplishments, but you also feel humble. So you can accomplish things without making it mean that you're better than other people, without making it mean that you like are like over believing in your abilities, thinking that you can do anything, even in cases where maybe like you shouldn't think you can do that. I'm trying to think of an example. But like, for example, let's say I'm playing basketball in like a backyard, and I like shoot a hoop on like a like a 7-foot hoop, and the basketball goes in. I could like start to feel pride and think to myself, I'm the best at basketball. I could, I could go up against the pros, but if I went and tried to go up against the pros, I'm gonna get dumpstered. I'm gonna suddenly get my pride smacked around. And they'll tell me what's what. And so you can feel good about like, oh hey, like I got that shot. I shot the basketball and it went in, and that's great. And I can do more than I could a day ago, and I can feel good about that and use that positive emotion to just enjoy my life. I feel like that's kind of the purpose of pride, is to just like help you feel like you can keep going and help you feel like you can enjoy things. Because if you're not able to feel pride about like learning anything or developing a skill or um, achieving some goal that you have, then you kind of start to feel a little hopeless or empty or just apathetic. So
Yeah.
I think pride has a role in like helping us get out of apathy and helping us get into joy, but we just don't want to let it be so powerful and consuming that it separates us from other people.
Yeah, exactly. Pride is a tricky one because pride like saying, it can be both things. It's powerfully or powerfully destructive. That's
Yeah.
why Aristotle said it's the crime of all virtues, and the Bible and Dante said it's a deadly sin. Like literally this continuum of things. And I think understanding a little bit better where it comes from, how pride arises within us, will help us then be able to understand how to circumvent the hubristic side of pride and lean into the authentic side of pride. So it's like
Yeah.
pride I think is better understood as a process of self-reflection and assessment that 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 leads to an emotional landscape rather than being an emotion in and of itself, because there's a different mechanical thing. Like emotions come up in response to an event on their own. Event happens, fear. Event happens, happiness. Event happens, laughter. Boom, fast, right? Pride, though, it's not like that. It happens, and then there must be a cognitive process where I go, ooh, I did that event well, or ooh, that event came out exactly how I wanted. And then to the emotional landscape, and the emotional landscape is actually this other stuff. It's feelings of stability, feelings of contentment, feelings of correspondence, connection, peace, right? Like a satisfaction that comes from a job well done, right? That's the emotional landscape. And then we say, oh, I'm proud of that. So the difference is,
Yeah.
the thing is, that emotion results from pride. You still feel there's a little satisfaction, stability, contentment. The difference is if that emotional landscape results from authentic pride, then that emotional landscape is built on a very firm foundation and will be firmly with you a lot of time, because it built confidence, which is pride in result as opposed to in your identity. And when you have the pride in your identity, you must get that pride valid. And so to have it
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to being built on intrinsic motivation, which is dirty.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I love that you just said intrinsic motivation, because one of the other things that I studied in college was self-determination theory, which is the dominant theory of motivation. And what that theory says is that you need three factors to contribute to feeling motivated to do any task. And those things are a feeling of competence, so believing in your ability to do things, and pride helps contribute to that. A sense of autonomy, meaning that you chose to do that. So when you set goals and you tell yourself, this is something that I want to do, and then you accomplish it, and you feel some amount of pride, you're not only feeling competent, you're also feeling autonomous because you chose to strive for that and then it worked out for you. And so those are the only two that are relevant of the three to pride. But like, because pride exists, that is a experience in your body that helps you recognize, like, I guess those traits. It helps you recognize, like, I feel like I'm taking action based on my own desires, autonomy, and I feel like I am demonstrating competence or ability in this area. And because I recognize those two things, motivation or energy or desire to continue doing things is produced from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And here's another thing. It's like the energy to cultivate can also be produced by this external motivation. It's way more fragile, and it won't stay with you because it didn't come from you.
Yeah.
So that you haven't built it within, right? So and the intrinsic motivation. This is a thing about praise now and how it relates to pride, because what we do when we receive praise is one way to help us understand whether we are leaning towards the pride of hubris or the pride of authenticity. And so it's like this, like if you take in a compliment, if you do a thing and you're basking in the results of the thing and the satisfaction of a job well done because the job was done well, that's authentic pride. When
Yeah.
somebody compliments you, compliment can feel good about it, can, but if you find you craving the next compliment or basking too long and deeply in the glow of it, that's a sign to you that your pride is being built on external sources, because the compliments are not, you can depend on those, but you can always depend on your ability to do something fully and with your best, and right, you know what I mean? So like taking pride in the job well done is it like makes intrinsic sense, but taking pride in approval of others is way more intense and inflammatory and not unreliable, right? And so that's the and so the way this relates to praise is there is a way to praise that actually builds intrinsic motivation, and there's a way to that damages it, and that this has been validated by scientific research as well. When you praise somebody and you say, wow, great job, you're awesome, you're actually damaging their self-esteem and their ability to have intrinsic motivation, because you're helping them link their value and self-worth to the job well done. So you're and then that's what happens. We feel like our self-worth tied to achievements because of we've been praised all of our lives, and so we end up at a place of pride, but we've been brought there by a cause and effect chain. So again, this is above blame. No one's to blame for this. However, the authentic pride comes as a result of this whole other thing where you literally bask in the joy of the doing, right? And the praise that can help lead to that becoming an intrinsic part of a person's life, praise of effort rather than the praise of outcome. So you say, wow, you're really not giving up. That's amazing. That kind of praise, right? Like praise determination, praising effort, praising doggedness, praising repetition, praising the desire to not give up. Like obviously when it's not pathological, there are times where people need to quit something, and that's great. You know what I mean? You're really trying to work towards something. Being praised for your effort is going to put way more fuel at your back because it's going to create fuel within you. But praising your outcomes is actually going to destroy your ability to continue moving forward, because when one of the outcomes isn't praiseworthy, you're going to want to stop.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're making me think so hard right now, because like I work with high achievers a lot of time, like high achievers, perfectionists, people who have really high standards for themselves. And a lot of times people who have high standards, including myself, before I worked through some of this, even though their level of achievement is so high, the moment that like they start to burn out or get exhausted and they can't reach that same level of achievement, their thoughts about themselves come crashing down on them. It's like so clear that your sense of self-esteem and self-worth is rooted in your accomplishments. And then once the level of accomplishment starts to get a little shaky, then you completely believe that you're a piece of garbage. And I remember being like very much supported by like my parents and my family and everybody in my life telling me how great I was, how awesome and smart I was. And I thought that contributed to confidence and self-esteem, and it feels like it does. And in some ways it like helps you think that sometimes, but you're right. If it's done in moments where it's attaching it to your accomplishment and it's not acknowledging your effort, then it does create this internalized belief of like, I'm good because I have accomplished these things. And if I don't continue to accomplish at this level, then maybe I'm bad. Maybe I suck. But that's not true. That's just something that we learned through our socialization, that we're only good if we accomplish things.
Exactly. As opposed to taking pride in the effort, which by all rights is absolutely worth taking pride in. Like some of the times the things we do or try to do are fucking hard. They're fucking hard. And we should be proud of ourselves for even getting up and trying to do it. But the culture we swim in doesn't operate that way. It says if you try and fail, you should go run and hide under a rock, and maybe you're lucky if you get to come out and try again if we don't all hate you forever for trying and failing publicly. That's what, right?
Oh
And
my
so
gosh. Yeah.
literally it's forcing us into this box of looking our worth to our accomplishments, when actually our worth has nothing to do with accomplishments. Our accomplishments are results of this other, our ability to move through the world. And if you're moving through the world in a accomplishments, you're suffering the whole time. Is that good for you? What good is that for you? Right? So we find a way to focus on the way we move through the world, the way of being we inhabit, as opposed to the stuff we achieve.
Yeah. This is making me think about, you know how there's kind of two different kinds of like people who are really successful. There's some people who have just like kind of been successful and continue on with that. They just like are the people that, you know, perform top notch all the time. And then there's like people who you didn't see anything in at the beginning. Like you could have looked at them and thought, man, this person's like a real screw up. And then Oprah becomes Oprah, you know? Like I feel like those people that like you don't see something in the beginning are the people that like recognize and feel proud of their effort and feel proud of their ability to come back from difficult circumstances, and like their pride is placed in the right place. And that's what allows them to do absolutely mind-blowing things and not get knocked down.
Because their pride is placed in their effort, not in their results. That's literally what it is. They're deriving pride from successfully working towards a goal as opposed to achieving a goal. And that's definitely cultural, and it's definitely a whole paradigm shift. So as we describe this, same as usual, whenever Mo and I are describing sort of these changes in ways of thinking, but they're subtle within behavior, right? Like, understand as you hear this, like, this is a practice. This is a lifetime practice. Like, I'm on step 2 of infinite steps in this practice. And so anyone who's listening who's on step 1 can benefit from that. But like, we're going to be doing this for our whole lives, right? So if you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm stuck in this other mode of being where I have all this external motivation, I want to find it within myself. Take a deep breath, relax. The fact that you want that this resonates with you means you will get it, because that's what seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. Like, so your curiosity will guide you to further and further and further levels of liberation. If you continue to approach this journey you're on as you watch these shows with equanimity for self, with kindness, you're not behind. We're not behind schedule. I'm not behind schedule, and I'm still an arrogant prick sometimes, and I'm right on time. So if I can say that about myself.
I love it. I love it. That's so funny.
What you're mentioning there with the people who, you know, the underdog type thing, it reminds me of one of the studies that I had, which they surveyed athletes. They had these 2 definitions of power. People get power through dominance, that's bullying or hoarding resources or manipulating people. And other people gain power and influence through prestige, which they define prestige as becoming skilled in one thing or many things, and then having the intrinsic desire to share the skills. And so then you gain influence because people come to want to learn from you, gaining influence because you can force yourself to be influential, right? So those are the things, dominance, prestige. And then they surveyed athletes, and they asked athletes to rate their own levels of pride that was authentic pride, and their own levels of pride where they were deriving the pride, the validation of others, like that hubristic pride. And they also then asked the same athletes to rate their teammates in terms of whether they were highly prestigious teammates or highly dominant teammates. And so they weren't rating themselves that way. It was interesting because what the findings were is that the athletes that rated themselves as more authentic pride were rated by their teammates as being more prestigious. And those who identified themselves as experiencing more hubris were identified by their teammates as being more dominant or a bully or hostile.
Yeah. Okay. So there was some self-awareness in that assessment. That's cool.
That is cool.
That's very cool. A lot of times, most studies you hear about, it's the opposite. It's like people think that they're like, they're great, and then everybody else is like, no.
So interesting. In a study about
I love that.
They actually
Yeah.
some humble, self-aware people.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, so we've already talked about this a little bit, but Brian, I wanted to ask you, how do you think we can bring our level of pride into equilibrium? What's something that we can do to work towards that positive amount of authentic pride?
Yeah. Okay. I guess what comes to me is like maybe it's less about levels, like because it would be okay to have giants of pride if it was in the right direction, and it would be okay to just
Oh
have a
yeah,
little bit of pride if it was in the right direction. So it's more for me about like
true.
the balance would be like channeling your pride, however intense it is, in the direction that's helpful to
Yeah,
you. And in order
yeah.
to do that, it's something like that for me will build pride is acts of integrity and acts of courage
Mm.
and service to others. So doing things like that
Oh yeah.
are ways to authentic pride because we the way the fundamental thing of human nature is that we're social, and so our mind wants cooperation. It's like intrinsic to the human psyche. And so when
Mhm.
you things that penetrate down to that natural place, even though it's all covered by culture, pride is what rises up automatically because you're touching in on your authentic core, and that authentic core
Yeah.
can be courage and service to others really, really easily. And
Yeah.
another way to do things that in your integrity or things that are courageous is to really start small. So in studying resolve, I've been studying resolve a little bit recently, just as it relates to
Mhm.
New Year's resolutions and wanting to like figure out how to end my cycles of like resolve
Yeah.
failure, resolve. I want it. So I'm looking into resolve, and as I've been looking into resolve, one thing that I've discovered across the literature is that if you resolve to do something and cannot do it, you actually damage your confidence and you weaken your resolve. So here,
Mm.
as you're building your authentic pride, right? And you're trying to have acts of integrity and courage and all that and acts of service, start small. Don't resolve to be fully in your integrity starting today, and don't resolve to be courageous if you've
Yeah.
done it your whole life. Instead, resolve to offer the plate of wife first instead of yourself. Start super small, like resolve to do that. If it
Mhm.
happens to be a thing of yours that you need your go to the book, it's individual for everybody. Like find a very small promise that you can make to yourself that is in the direction of the large promise you want. Like an example for me is my large promise is I want to be a person who raw, whole, organic foods and processed foods are not in my repertoire, and I'm the most virtuous nutrition soul on the planet because that's how I eat, right? And if I started that today and said I'm going to do that today, I have tried to do that actually, and it continues to fail, right? So now, like today, in fact, I've been trying to get off this. I drink this venti iced chai latte with coconut milk, 8 pumps of chai, and light ice, and it's so good, but it's so bad for me. And trying to get off of that, and I've been off it for years, on and off. And I've had successful times where I didn't drink it for 18 months, and then the
Mhm.
snapback always, and every time the snapback happens, it weakens my little for the next time, even though my resolve was strengthened by the success of the times off it, right?
Yeah.
So this yo-yo. So what I did today,
Yeah.
because I learned about resolve and how to make it smaller, is I went to
Mhm.
Starbucks, happily got my latte, tried to do it, muster up as much non-judgmental equanimity for myself, and then I ordered a medium instead of a large.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's the step. It's just have a little bit less. You don't have to completely cold turkey cut yourself off. Ordering a medium, you're still technically, however much this is, closer to your health goals and your eating goals.
Yeah,
That counts. That counts. And then you can feel proud of yourself for taking a step in the right direction.
for my effort,
Yeah.
for my effort,
Yeah,
because
for
my
your effort.
success would mean I don't drink the latte at all, right? And like I can't,
Mhm.
that's unreliable. So I don't want that to be where I derive pride from because I can't rely on it.
Yeah.
I derive pride from a source that's
Yes.
reliable, which is small promises. Oh, and that not only did
Yeah.
that promise help me have this morning, it's actually strengthening my resolve. So tomorrow I can get a medium, and the next day a medium, and maybe in March it's a small, and maybe in May I skip a
Yeah.
bunch of and get it sometimes, right? Like, and then eventually 2025, 2026, Starbucks is firmly in my rearview mirror, which is something I've been trying to do for a decade, you know?
I love that. I love it so much. Well, and I do the same thing with like exercise. I used to like think about how much I wanted to work out and how much I thought I should work out. And when I put that pressure on myself and I tried to like have the resolve, I would do a couple days and then like burn out. And now I I always like am assessing in my body how much do I feel like I can do,
Mm.
and then I just do that. And when I
Yeah.
did that, when I started out, there were a lot of days where it was just like stretching. I would stretch and then I'd be like, okay, that's enough. But I would feel good about the fact that I went downstairs and I stretched because I work out in my basement. Um, but now I'm pretty consistently like weightlifting. And I can tell that my entire body like looks different because I've been doing it for like 5, 6 months. And I don't hate on myself on days where I'm just like, you know what, like I don't really have time. I have other things that I need to do today. And then the next day I'm like, okay, what can
Yeah.
I do?
On those days, you can
And it's
call it
just,
yoga and you're doing corpse pose.
yes, that's it. That's it. But if you can still feel proud of any amount that you've done,
Yeah. Any amount.
instead of like being super hypercritical of like, if I do anything less than I told myself I was going to do, then I'm going to beat myself up about it. How on earth are you going to sustain that habit
Yeah.
if every time you don't do it perfectly, you beat yourself up? Like, no, like every single step in the right direction counts and is huge. And if you can feel proud of that,
Yeah.
allow yourself to give yourself credit for it, then that's how you can keep going.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Exactly. Like so much. So we have this thing, we have this goal that's in the future, right? But so instead of telling yourself, I'm going to accomplish this now and then
Mhm.
failing, tell yourself I'm going to accomplish it in the future and don't even put a date on it. Just know it's in the future. And instead, what actually is a day? Because when you promise yourself something and nail it, that's what builds your resolve.
Yeah.
You don't want to keep promising yourself that aspirational goal. Just tell yourself it's in the
Mhm.
future. Put it in the future. Take the pressure off, having faith in it, but letting that go. And then really put the promise on something you know you can do. Even if you think it's
Yeah.
pathetic, if you know you can do it and you do it, it'll still strengthen your resolve. There'll just be a little part of you competing with you going, it's pathetic. But 7 days in a row of doing that pathetic thing, it isn't going to feel pathetic. And that part of you will stop saying that because it will no longer, and your mind doesn't tell you
Yeah.
lies. It tells you lies, but it doesn't tell you lies that it knows are lies. The mind believes everything it's telling you. And we just have to say
Of
to the
course it
mind,
does.
that's not true. You know what I mean? So the
Yeah.
mind's trying to tell you the truth when it says something like, but after 7 days of you doing that thing that you can continue to think is pathetic and nailing it, you will know it isn't pathetic. And so your mind will shut up about that because your mind will not tell you something it thinks is a lie, even
Yeah.
though most things are a lie. They're true. So it tells them to.
Yeah. So, long story short, to bring it all together, it's really important to give yourself credit for any amount of steps that you take towards the things that you value, the things that are in integrity for you, and the things that you have like set goals for yourself for, because that contributes to motivation, that contributes to heightened self esteem and confidence. And as long as we're focusing on giving ourselves credit for our effort and not necessarily for how other people perceive us or for how other people are telling us how amazing we are, then it's going to be more sustainable. Um, and we also want to just check ourselves and ask, like, okay, am I feeling proud of myself just like for myself, or am I feeling proud of myself trying to feel better than other people or trying to put other people down in order to feel better about myself?
Yeah. So everybody just start small. You know what I mean? Notice what you're doing right. Take pride in that result and
Mhm.
lower your expectation on anything where you haven't been able to achieve it. Lower them right down and make the promises that you can achieve. And you will end up way back up there, but without all that pressure.
Mhm. Yeah,
So we
because you'll
appreciate
strengthen
you
your
all.
resolve and it'll get easier.
Yeah, exactly. Strengthen your resolve and it will get easier and easier. And so we appreciate you all so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching from the future. We're proud of you, not for your accomplishments, but for showing up and continuing to put in the effort. So until next week, be messy and be blessed. Much love, everybody. Bye. I don't know if we're still live on Instagram or not.
It says live still. Oh man.
It says live still on the live stream too. We're live everywhere still. The technical difficulties
Awesome.
can't even stop being live. So Mo, I'm just gonna quit the applications and then like we can chat and like we can FaceTime or something. Okay.
Sounds good.